Welcome to Creative Options webinar presentation on Monday, May 13th, 2013. My name is Sandra Contreras. I am a certified coach. The topic we are presenting today is the behavior support process. We will be sharing how we implement the process and some of the steps are taken to support the individual needs of our children and families. We will keep in mind that although this is a serious and much needed tool, we do understand listening to people talk about this tool may not be too exciting, but we have provided you some chilling photos of us that you'll be able to look at. We hope to supply you with useful tools and information that keep you engaged. We will be pausing after each topic and asking if you have questions. Please keep in mind there's a quiz at the end of this presentation. Just kidding. Now, let me introduce you to our presenters. Lisa Head is a social-emotional coach, currently in the process for certification. Ben Reapy is a certified social-emotional coach and trainer. Jean Teskey is a mental health coach who is also certified. Our Developmental Services Director, Penny Forrester-Narleski, and lastly, Education Resource Director, Denny McGeehan. Let's get started. First up is Penny.
All right. Hi, everybody. Hi, Jessica. Glad you're with us. I would like to just share with you some background information so you know a little bit more about who we are as a program. Here at Creative Options, we serve over 500 children ages 6 months to 5 years. Our program includes early Head Start, private paid families, and an inclusive early childhood program. Our coaches are busily working with 21 classrooms at 4 different sites here in Aurora. And we have approximately 85 plus staff, and that's including teachers, family development workers, developmental services, and health. So it's a pretty big piece for us to pull together this whole Pyramid Plus throughout all of our sites. And so the implementation of Pyramid Plus, we're continuously integrating the philosophy and standards of practice with our teaching teams, the family development teams, and again, the developmental services and the health teams. And as many of you are doing, too, that are with Head Starts, you have to throw in school readiness, so it's really keeping a lot of us pretty busy and hopping. The coaches here are going to talk to you about the process that we've developed over the last 5 to 7 years. But I want to share with you our process is important, but what's more important than that is the relationship. Rules are very important for us to have, but the relationship to have people want to follow those rules is pretty critical. So we want to focus on the relationship between the child, the teacher, and the parent, 3 very critical people. We also need to look at the relationship between the child, the teacher, the parent, and the coach. Now we're going to compound this even further by the relationship that goes along with the child, the teacher, parent, coach, and the director team. And then finally, we have to really look at the relationship also that's being built between the teacher, the coach, the program administration, because it's all of these different layers of relationships that make this work be meaningful. We all need to have a mutual respect for each other and a true desire to collaborate and be diligent in our communications together. Our plans and our processes on how we support each other, how we challenge each other, and how to celebrate our successes, because we've certainly had some of those to enjoy. As Sandra said, we want this to be as interactive as possible, so pop in your questions to us or unmute yourselves and share your thoughts. We will be stopping, as Sandra said, too, after each focus talk and ask questions. So keeping that in mind, here's Sandra to begin our process with you.
Thanks, Penny. We're asking you guys to keep in mind that this is an overview. We've chosen material we thought would give you a clear understanding in the processes and the way we implement them. We begin with what we call Kid Chat, on to challenging behaviors, child-specific, Kid Chat, finishing with the behavior support plan itself. We will conclude and then follow with questions and answers.
Hi, my name is Ben Reapy, and I'll be starting the process of Kid Chat, which is a meeting that we have between the teachers and the developmental service team to collaborate and put ideas together. Next slide, please. All right. So each of our classrooms has a monthly meeting to discuss any concerns they might have with their children. And in this meeting, we discuss children and come up with collaborative strategies to help the children succeed in the classroom. During this time, we have a quick follow-up session of the previous month and discuss any progress or concerns that might be observed. We collect family updates from the family development workers and discuss any accommodations and interventions that we want to implement through the next month. Frequently, a lower-level strategy or two addressing a predicted function will eliminate challenging behavior. So, for example, if it's September and a child is having trouble focusing during circle time, we might ask the teacher to consider their length of large group time or plan some physical or motor activities in the middle of the group time. And if the child's better able to focus, then we know that that was indeed the issue, the circle time was too long or there wasn't enough movement activities. If the child is brought up in Kid Chat, the coach will be made to pop into the classroom and try to ascertain the function if it isn't figured out. And if after one observation the function still isn't able to be deciphered, then we may move to a child-specific Kid Chat. So now my friend Lisa is going to tell us a little bit about our definition of challenging behavior.
Hi, I'm Lisa. Challenging behavior, as all behavior, is a form of communication. Behaviors are challenging when they interfere with the child's own ability to learn or the learning of their peers. A child will continue to use challenging behaviors if it's working for them. Creative Options has adopted a definition of challenging behavior developed with the Pyramid Leadership Team. Behaviors are challenging when they persist, occur over time, and interfere with the child's ability to learn. Challenging behaviors can include physical aggression, such as hitting, kicking, my favorite one is spitting, pinching, pushing, biting, throwing or taking toys forcefully, not following directions, running away, running in the classrooms, hallways, or other areas not designated for running, climbing on things that are not designated for climbing, destroying property, like tearing down artwork, destroying what another child is working on, like knocking over a friend's tall tower, tantrum behavior, including headbanging, disruptive behavior in a group, such as talking out, leaving the group activity, verbal aggression, including yelling, screaming, calling children's names, and using inappropriate language, stereotypic behaviors that are repetitive behaviors that disrupt learning, persistent or prolonged crying that is disruptive, self-injury, sexually inappropriate behaviors, other unusual concerns including gorging, hoarding foods, unusual toileting issues, sleep issues, intimidations, etc. Are there any questions?
Okay. So we'll be moving into the child-specific Kid Chat. This is Ben again. And so did anyone have any questions? If you, or forever hold your peace. Okay. So next slide, please. Thanks. Okay, child-specific Kid Chats are strategy building sessions for the teaching team, mental health coach, pyramid coach, and supervisor. They focus on one child with challenging behavior. So this is a little bit about our process here. So if you look at your form number 1, since everyone, all three of us can find the form number 1, is the one that says Overview of Behavior Support Plan Protocol Process, which is a little bit wordy and probably slightly redundant. But we can move into that. That's the page. And if you can't find it or if you didn't print those off, a lot of the bullet points here will describe exactly what's on that sheet. So at first, the teacher starts documenting conversations with the parent. So let's say Johnny is having problems sitting in circle time. The teacher tells the parent that this is occurring frequently, and then later has a second conversation stating where the teacher tells the parent, I'm not sure exactly why I can't get him to stay in circle a little bit longer, but I'm going to try to talk to the coach. So that will be a second documented conversation in the child's file. Then the teachers and education supervisors are brought into a meeting where they're asked to respond to certain questions about their relationships with the child, questions about the environment itself. And the child-specific Kid Chat is different in a behavior support plan in that it's more about figuring out what is going on in the classroom. Is there things in the classroom that could be changed or tweaked to make it easier for the teacher to focus, for the children to focus? So the teacher says, yes, I've got issues, and then they fill out the request for classroom support. And that helps the developmental services team. So this is handout number 2, and that says request for classroom support. If you want to look at it later, that will help you see what that looks like for our site. And that sort of tells where is the location of the site, what are the form of the behavior, so physical aggression or verbal aggression or self-injury or what have you. And then what kinds of strategies have the teachers been using in the past is on that sheet. So if we notice that the teacher is using lots of accidentally reinforcing behaviors, then we can notice it there in the sheet that the parent/teacher turns in. Next slide, please. Thanks. So we really look at the environment and the strategies that are being used and what could we use to teach more appropriate strategies instead. Okay? Frequently, while the behaviors are challenging and disruptive, they might be modified by just a little bit of tweaking or curricular modification. So parents are asked for and given information about the strategies used, but this level of support is more about making sure that pyramid strategies are firmly in place by the teaching team, not so much child has unexplainable challenging behavior. A lot of times you'll notice that teaching teams have accidentally reinforced challenging behavior just by having circles that are too long, etc. But if this child is having really persistent challenging behavior, they might move quickly or immediately to a behavior support plan where the parent is more closely involved. Sometimes directors of our program push the process forward faster, move to that kind of plan in a more timely fashion. So in child-specific Kid Chat, the focus is on the fidelity of strategies used and even the relationship between the teacher and child. As you know, when a child or teacher are struggling in the relationship, it won't matter if we put in the greatest new individualized strategies. The teaching team works hard to keep the challenging behaviors in a reframed perspective. They're simply behaviors that mask a skill deficit. This meeting also checks to ensure that the rest of the team has been doing their job. Are the supervisors and the coaches in the room in there to support the way they're supposed to be doing? So this is part of the child-specific Kid Chat, is saying, did you get in the times that you're supposed to be getting in there? The next slide, please. Okay. So typically these kids are on like the second tier of the pyramid. So it's children who need social skills taught, but they're not on the third tier of the pyramid. They're not children who need really in-depth exploring into why they're doing these behaviors. So that, again, the parents are involved in feedback sessions, but they're not as involved as they are in the behavior support plan. And the children with the severest behaviors move quickly into the full-on behavior support plan. Okay? Teacher team helping develop a social story might help with it. So in this case, the child is struggling with circle time, or I'm sorry, with block area, and how do I play successfully with a peer? And so there's just a really a clip here of ideas of what you can do in blocks that would build those relationships. So get out blocks, say here, hand a block to a friend, take turns with a friend, and then each of those little skills would be modeled by the teaching team. So they would teach a kid how to practice handing a toy to another peer and say, here you go, or they would teach a child how to wait and take turns in the block area, and then they would have these visuals to support them when they are in the block area. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Great. Thanks, team. Look at these beautiful children. I think this is an important piece, again, for the reframe perspective. The child is not giving me a hard time. My child is having a hard time. And sometimes children, because of their skill deficits, don't have the things that they need or the skills that they need to get the things that they want, so they do these kind of bizarre behaviors to get them. And it's not always extreme challenges. Sometimes it's just you simply need to teach it, and then the problems go away. So that's kind of what the child-specific Kid Chat is.
All right. Hi, I'm Jean. You can see that I get the prize for the least photogenic person on the team based on that photo.
No, that's fine.
And the other plus for me today is I'm losing my voice, so you'll have to bear with me. I'm going to tell you about our highest level of individualized intervention for children who are challenging in the classroom. Next slide, please. We prepare for a behavior support meeting by collecting small units of behavioral data on observation cards. This is another one of your handouts, and it also is going to be the next slide. We prepare, where am I? The triggers that are recorded on these observation cards show what preceded the challenging behavior. Then we note the behavior itself, and then following whatever the immediate consequence after the behavior occurred, so that we can take a look at causation and whether we are reinforcing something after it occurs. This helps us when we get to the actual behavior support meeting or BSP meeting to take a look at the underlying function of the behavior. What is the child really trying to get accomplished by his misbehavior? We have parents involved as an integral part of the team from the start, providing information about their child at home, representing their child's interests as they see it, and helping us to build strategies on a collaborative basis. Next slide. The meeting itself is set at a time, while we were back on the observation card, we also have another handout that's called the cheat sheet, and that is one that explains, for those that aren't real familiar with looking at triggers and consequences, how to understand these three pieces of the behavior. So that's available with your handouts, although we don't have a slide for it. On to the meeting time. Meeting time is set at a convenient time for parents. And the meeting itself begins with introductions, followed by an explanation that challenging behaviors are used by children when they aren't able, for whatever reason, to express their needs in an acceptable way. It's really important to welcome the parents at this point as valued team members, which they truly are, and try to counter any fears they may have that the school sees their child as a bad child or in some way sees them in a negative light. The BSP meeting is a great opportunity to establish a climate of home-school cooperation from the beginning. And this is enhanced when we start off with a list of the child's strengths and recent progress, both at home and then at school. Actually, I think we're still on the same one. I'm sorry, Lisa. Next, a review of the prior history with the child-specific kid chat. Although once in a long while, we'll have a child whose challenges are so extreme that we may move directly to the behavior support plan. We do 2 assessments, and we review those, the DECA-C, or the Devereaux Early Childhood Assessment, which gives us really good insights into the social-emotional functioning of the child, and the short sensory profile, which tells us a lot about how they react on their various sensory levels. The current behaviors that are concerns at school and at home are described next. Now we're getting to the meat of the reason for the meeting, the challenges. The group discussion draws on observations to understand the all-important function. Is the child trying to obtain something or to avoid something, or could it be both? Sometimes one, sometimes the other. Out of the group's consensus, and this is the next slide, 1 or more goals will be selected. This will be either to decrease dysfunctional behaviors or to increase appropriate behaviors, and sometimes both, usually both. Then specific strategies are selected, and the next slide shows these fall into the category of preventing the challenging behaviors, and may just be a whole range of things from visuals to verbal cues to the child. Teaching appropriate skills, which obviously the child does not have if they're resorting to challenging behaviors. They may have some, but they don't have sufficient skills to get them through their needs. And the third category, we develop strategies about how to respond effectively to both challenging behaviors and to the appropriate behaviors as we start to get them surfacing and we want to reinforce them. In the parent involvement part of the BSP, specific strategies are made for the family to use. This may be at home or upon entry into the program. Sometimes, in addition to those areas, we may refer the family to outside mental health resources as a supplement to what we're doing with the BSP and school.
The family being referred to outside mental health resources in this picture is my own.
We send those that we love the most. The mental health coach provides, this is the next slide, weekly services in the classroom, modeling, coaching, observing, and collaborating with the teachers to implement the plan. After 2 weeks after the first behavior support plan meeting, the mental health coach meets with the teaching team again to discuss how it's going and to refine the details. Thereafter, every 6 weeks from the date of the first behavior support meeting with the parents, subsequent reviews are held with the parents to assess the progress with the full group. And when the child overcomes his or her challenges, he or she graduates off the behavior support plan, and at that point can be monitored again in the monthly Kid Chat meetings if needed. So that's the whole process, taking it up to the highest level of intervention. Do you have any questions?
Okay. Concluding rather early, we've got to throw fun-loving in this, or you'll go absolutely crazy, and hardworking person to become fully invested as a Pyramid Plus teacher coach. And also we're trying to get our parents to become more Pyramid Plus themselves. Not everyone cuts the grade. Teachers and coaches alike must be willing to meet our agency standards of implementation, as the children we serve really must have the best so that they can be better able to succeed in their school years coming ahead. And that's our driving goal, is that children can be as successful as they can be and be socially skilled so that they can get their needs met. We've learned so very much over the last few years, and we know there is much more out there to wrestle with. So that concludes what we had to present. We certainly welcome questions, comments, feedback.